Hello and welcome to the Randomly Generated History Club, where three non-historians pick a year at random and try to learn things about it. I'm Anna, and I'm here with my two friends, Ant and Will.
Hi there.
Hello.
Hello.
You didn't need to say hello.
Well, I just wanted to say hi to you guys. Hello.
Hello.
And to our faithful listeners at home. This week, it's an exciting one. We've got the year 1995, which we determined was the first year that we've had on the show where we were alive.
It's the biggest year yet.
It's the biggest year yet, numerically
Speaking,
and
it is
emotionally, I would say, as well.
So much happened in this year.
So it was overwhelming.
It was too much to choose from.
Yeah. And it was just so weird to think about topics and then remember where I was when they happened and my reaction to them, like the OJ verdict.
Yeah, I can't believe you did that.
I know. Well, do what you got to do. So anyway, we'll get into our stories, but first, can I have your three words? Will.
Posh ball war.
Posh ball war.
Yeah.
That
Right?
sounds like a tongue twister. Yeah. And mine is my retirement fund.
Okay. And mine is oui or non.
Okay, French then. French. Yeah. Good.
All right. I am up first today. And like we mentioned, 1995 was overwhelming and there were just so many things to talk about. And, my reaction to them and everything. And so I was going to do OJ and then I was going to do Michael Jordan's return to basketball, but I decided not to do either of those because it was just too much. I needed some really neutral ground to cover, and I came up with the most neutral ground of all. So today I'm talking about Canada.
Okay. The least controversy possible.
I know.
Good.
And I don't know that we've ever talked about Canada on the program, and I know we have listeners there, and we love you guys.
Yeah.
Has anyone ever talked about it?
Exactly. It turns out Canada has history.
Oh.
I mean, a little bit.
But it's basically British and American history, isn't it?
Yeah, it's America's hat, as the saying goes. But in 1995, there was actually quite a pivotal moment in Canadian history, which was the Quebecois independence referendum.
Oh, okay.
So the province of Quebec. And so for our listeners who don't know about Canada, which I assume is most of them.
Including the Canadians.
Including the Canadians. Of the provinces, Quebec has always been a little unique. It retains the most French culture versus the rest of Canada, which has more of an English culture. It's largely Francophone. It's where Montreal is. And the question of independence has come up time and time again because they feel like the odd one out and maybe that they should be their own thing. They had a referendum in 1980 that did not succeed. And spoiler alert, this one doesn't either because it is still part of Canada.
Yeah, there's no Republic of Quebec that I know. Oh, sorry, La République.
Exactly. And so you might think, well, what's the point of telling this story? But I'm going to tell you that of all of the interesting things that happened in 1995, this is right up there. It's got it all. It's got confusingly worded ballots, necrotizing fasciitis, prank phone calls, a soupçon of ethnic nationalism. And I'm not kidding. All of this is true.
I am excited.
All right. So after the failed independence referendum in 1980, in 1987, the Prime Minister and the premiers of all of the Canadian provinces negotiated something called the Meech Lake Accord, which had a series of amendments that decentralized some powers and recognized Quebec as a distinct society. But all of the provinces had 3 years to ratify this, and if they didn't, it was null and void. And so there was a lot of heated debate, and long story short, 2 provinces failed to ratify it. So Quebec wasn't singled out as having any sort of distinct society. And that really enraged Quebecers.
The people in this distinct society.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so they kicked off another big conversation about independence. And in 1995, they decided to try again with a full referendum. The Yes campaign was led by the Premier of Quebec, whose name was Jacques Parizeau. And here's a helpful tip. Anytime somebody has a French-sounding name,
Yep.
they're generally pro-independence. And if they have a really, really English-sounding name, anti. Except that the no side was led by Federalist Canadians like the Prime Minister, Jean Chrétien. So he immediately disproves my rule about French-sounding names. And the no side, emphasized the economic risks and played up the touchy-feely stuff. Very similar to what's happening in the conversation about Scottish independence, right? Like, there are a lot of risks.
The French people there really want independence.
The French people there are so pro-Scottish independence. Each side had a budget of $5 million to conduct their campaign, which I find just so lovely and quaint.
Amazing.
And yep, here you go, $5 million. You can't spend a penny more. And one of the central questions in the run-up to the referendum was what exact type of sovereignty would be on the ballot and how much they needed to get into the future of a partnership and what it would look like. And there was a large faction who said that it needed to be clear that Quebec would retain some sort of formal economic partnership with Canada, but then others thought that this was unnecessary at this stage and would dilute the central question of independence. We just need a straight up yes or no vote and not get dragged into all the particulars. However, there were lawsuits and injunctions and a lot of back and forth wrangling, and the final draft of the question was this. Do you agree that Quebec should become sovereign after having made a formal offer to Canada for a new economic and political partnership within the scope of the bill respecting the future of Quebec and of the agreement signed on the June 12th, 1995?
What? I don't... Unpacking this is...
I have it in French as well, but I'll spare you that. So it's just the wordiest, most confusing. I could not tell you what.
Yeah, I'm now actually... I thought if I voted yes, it means independence, but now I'm not super sure, actually.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't know if you guys watch Parks and Rec, but there's this great newscaster character on the show called Perd Hapley. And in one episode, he runs a poll. And the question of his poll is, do you think that Leslie Knope should be in England? Do you not think that? Or do you not think that? It's just that's exactly what this question is. It's sort of
so good.
I guess, yes. So despite this very confusingly worded question, the campaign kicks off and early polls show that the pro-independence side is down and independence looks unlikely. But then Parizeau, the leader of the pro-independence side, decided on a strategy of attacking business leaders who intervened in the campaign, saying that they were betraying their Quebecer customers.
I mean, attacking business is not a good way to start a new society.
Yeah, exactly. And it just threw more doubt into what the economic ramifications of this would be. And so the yes side said, we got to get this guy out of here. We need a different pro-independence campaigner.
Can I take back that? Because I think if you're a communist, attacking business is exactly what you want to do to start your new society.
Who's bringing the communists into this?
I don't know. I just think they could crop up at any stage.
That's true.
Always be alert and vigilant. Okay, the Red Menace is looming over all of us.
Exactly. I couldn't have said it better myself.
Sorry.
Never apologize for alerting people to the Red Menace. So the yes side decides to shake it up a bit and enter a man named Lucien Bouchard. So Lucien Bouchard was the incredibly charismatic leader of the Bloc Québécois party, political party, and people loved him, partly because in 1994, he'd been in a bad hockey accident where he broke his leg. The wound got infected. He contracted necrotizing fasciitis, which is the flesh-eating bacteria.
Yeah. God.
Genuinely the scariest thing I can possibly imagine. And he had to have the leg amputated. But people loved this resilience, and they loved him even more for persevering despite these obstacles. And politicians on both sides of the aisle described his appeal as, quote, messianic and almost impossible to personally attack. And I love this story. Apparently, there were focus groups where when the people were presented with statements that Bouchard had made that they didn't like, they would just refuse to believe that he made the statements. So he's just this untouchable charisma
How do I get that power?
I know, right? And for instance, at one point, Bouchard said, Quebecois were the white race with the lowest rate of reproduction, which, smacks a little bit of ethnic nationalism.
Yeah, it's a bit odd.
And people just sort of let it go, and it didn't become an issue, and he wasn't attacked for it. So this guy is like untouchable.
Okay, I've not seen a picture of him, but I'm assuming he's extremely handsome.
Is he handsome? He's Canadian handsome.
What an absolute savage burn.
He's got really good eyebrows. Got very charismatic, thick, bushy brows.
Yep. I mean, so did Saddam Hussein.
Yeah.
I'm just saying.
Saddam Hussein was a good-looking bloke. That's what you like about Saddam Hussein, but he had charisma.
He had commanding eyebrows.
Yeah.
is my saying.
Yeah.
Check out Saddam Hussein in like the early 80s. Picture of, like, I'm not, listeners, do Google that. He was
Or read about him on Will's blog.
great fascists of history.
So Bouchard and his charisma just really supercharged the yes side, and the campaign rages on, and all of a sudden it's become really tight. The First Nations people in Quebec are strongly opposed to independence, and Bill Clinton, U.S. president, also intervenes, saying how special Canada is. But then my favorite part of this whole story is that a Montreal radio station had their DJ impersonate Jean Chrétien, the prime minister, on a call to the Queen. They actually called Queen Elizabeth and begged her to make a televised address asking Quebecers to vote no. And they spoke to her for 17 minutes before her staff realized it was a hoax.
Oh my God.
And she apparently reluctantly agreed to do the broadcast during this 17-minute prank phone call. So I loved that. Anyway, referendum day arrives, and
They just dial 00441.
Yeah, they just oh, sorry, Will is showing me a picture of young Saddam Hussein. It's striking.
I mean, I see it. I see it.
So Google that on your own time. Referendum day arrives, and the turnout was 93.52%, which was the highest that it had ever been. 93% of Quebecers. So it's not all Canadians, obviously. It's just Quebec.
Oh, wow.
But it's the highest turnout in Canadian history. And so, of course, we know that Quebec isn't independent. So the independent side lost. But do you guys want to guess what the margin was?
Ooh. Like less than 7%. There was really those people that didn't vote could have swung it.
I reckon about 60-40.
60-40. 50.58% voted no.
Wow. Super close.
Yeah, it was a difference of about 55,000 votes.
Wow.
And something like 81,000 ballots were marked ineligible.
Oh, wow.
So there was all of this.
Stole the vote.
Exactly. Controversy
Russian voting
around,
machines.
Yes, exactly. And then, I mean, the fallout from this was immense. It eventually went to the Canadian Supreme Court, who said, even if independence had won, it's unconstitutional and you wouldn't have been able to do it. So it's this whole question, and was it even legal? Whatever.
Yeah.
But I guess it shows there isn't an overwhelming majority for it.
Yeah.
It's about 50-50.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I just thought that was so interesting. That is razor thin. We talk about Brexit being 52-48 and how thin that is, but 50.58%. And it really kind of dampened the momentum of the sovereignty movement. And there were other proposed referendums that never really amounted to anything. And obviously the question still exists, I think.
Yeah, the complex question.
It didn't just sort of go away. But so that was just a little bit of what was happening in Canada in 1995.
Nice.
That's really cool.
And that's probably the last time I'll ever talk about Canada on the show. We love you, Canada.
Okay, today I'm going to talk about the surprisingly fascinating history of the game of rugby.
Ooh.
That
Look at me feigning enthusiasm in this sport.
And that's because in 1995, which is the year that we're covering this week, that was the year that rugby officially became a professional sport.
Okay.
Having been an amateur sport
Oh.
previously.
Really?
Yes. So it was that recently that rugby became a professional sport.
Now how does What does that mean?
I will come
Okay,
to
good.
exactly that. So I'm not.
I'm
gonna
assuming that
talk-
means they got paid. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. So I'm not going to talk about the rules very much because
Thank God.
because they're actually not that complicated. But like you could you can search that on your own. So you could just go on Ask Jeeves or
Yeah.
or download Encarta maybe Encarta 95.
Do either of you
perhaps.
have an AOL
Well,
CD?
my
I've run out.
subscription is only up to the D's at the moment.
Oh,
so if you need
no.
anything about Denmark
Yeah.
or Danish pastries,
That's it's Encarta's very
Both of the
focused
same
on
listing.
Denmark.
Yes. What else was in 1995? Was Lycos 95?
Lycos probably
that
around,
sounds about-
yeah.
Alta Vista?
Netscape
Alta-
AOL?
Navigator. Yeah,
AOL?
Alta Vista. Yeah.
Oh, those are the days.
Great stuff.
So you, just jump on any of those platforms to find out the rules. So rugby or rugby football stems from the form of the game of football that was played at rugby school in England.
Okay.
And there were former pupils of that school who then introduced it into their universities. And so there was a specific guy, a specific former rugby school student called Albert Pell, who is the sort of rugby messiah figure, I guess.
When will the Rugby Messiah return?
There is actually no fixed prophecy on that
Oh,
yet,
okay,
but we can correct one.
He died for our sin bin.
That's very good. That's
Excellent.
very good.
So he's credited with having formed the first football team whilst at Cambridge University using these rugby rules. And it was at this time, this is like 1840s in England, that when all the different major private schools were using different rules. I think I spoke about it.
We have, yeah, we
I
have,
covered
yeah.
football, didn't
Yeah.
I?
You did cover football,
I'm
yeah.
cool. I'm like, yeah.
You just love sports so much.
Well, we don't talk about sport that much.
know.
It's a history podcast. There's not such an intersection of history nerds and
These are
sport
important
nerds.
cultural
Yeah.
phenomena. We can do American football next at some point.
Pass.
Anyway, so these former pupils of Rugby and Eton each attempted to then carry their rules onto their universities. But here's a lesson to anyone who wants to change the world. A key event in the early development of rugby football was when someone bothered to actually write down and distribute the rules.
Okay.
Yep.
Of the rules underpinning the version of the sport from rugby school, and then that sort of those rules were distributed. They got out there into the wider world, and those became really quite popular for a very long period of time. But because they kind of wrote it down first and distributed it first,
It goes that old adage: whoever wrote the rules writes the rules.
Yep.
Yep,
Pithy.
that's
Succinct.
Which then got superseded with a gold bit. Yeah.
Write things down. And the sport basically started to grow in popularity amongst that posh public school group of people. And in 1863, about 20 years later, they formed a national governing body. So that was the Football Association. And that then codified a set of universal football rules in England. But those rules specifically banned people from running with the ball, which in their hands, which is, for those people who don't know who haven't checked their Encarta article yet, like is quite a key part of rugby.
Yeah.
And so, and they also disallowed at that point this thing that was going on at the time called hacking, which was basically kicking the shins of players. This is like very, very common in some versions of football at the time. It's totally legal. And so in protest at the imposition of these new rules, several clubs then broke away from this FA. We used to have an FA in England, which looks after like soccer, and they then set up their own preferred rules of the game, which are the rugby rules. They broke away at that point, and they decided, and then very, very quickly they then outlawed hacking as well. Because
I mean,
like all the broken legs, I guess. And they then created rules of the game codified under something called the Rugby Football Union in 1871, and so that was the point really when you had like these two things had diverged, and you had these two like emerging rules of the thing.
Yep.
So in the 1870s, and then later there was like another major schism. So in 1895, within rugby, you then had a bunch of northern clubs which resigned from the RFU over the issue of reimbursing players for their time that they lost from their workplaces, and this is basically the start of this the schism, the further schism between rugby union and rugby league, which is far too deep for this podcast.
Yeah.
But it's for people who like are familiar with rugby league as a thing, like these like class-based issues and social issues are like at the very heart of like the identity of people who go and watch rugby league games, really. And it's like there's a whole thing there to it.
Okay, which one's the posher one then?
Rugby union is by far the posher one.
Okay.
And the rugby league is the northern,
Working class.
predominantly more the working class.
Practice in the mines.
And its whole literally its whole setup was like around all these issues, so it's it's baked into the whole sport. And then that became rugby league, and then at that point that was when rugby union started calling itself rugby union. That was in 1895, and that's how they all emerged at the end of the 19th century. And then basically the whole thing kept growing throughout the 20th century, and there was the first Rugby World Cup held in Australia and New Zealand in 1987.
Oh.
Okay.
So again, pretty recently.
Yeah.
And then in the year in question, in 95, the rugby union was then still an amateur sport right up until the point when just after the World Cup that year in August, when the world governing body of the sport, the IRB, then declared it to be, quote, open, unquote. Oh. And that basically removed restrictions on payments to the players.
Good.
So at that point you could pay people, therefore it was a professional game, and then since then it's just changed enormously as it's become like every other commercialized sport.
Massively
with loads of money pouring in.
Shirt sponsors.
We should sponsor a shirt.
We should.
We do sponsor, we sponsor the Crusaders in New Zealand. We have a £4 million a year deal with them.
Really?
You're not aware of this?
I wasn't. I just say yes to the minutes of the board meeting. I don't really listen.
No, we're spending $4 million on that.
Yeah. It's worth it though. I mean, the name recognition in New Zealand is
huge.
It's off the charts.
Yeah.
Huge.
6 or 7 people know who we are.
Okay, so a couple of questions to finish off to give a sense of the scale of rugby.
Yep.
So in the world today, how many active people do you think there are who play rugby regularly? Active players regularly playing.
Oh, I thought
professionals or just
no, not professionals, but people who are playing for like either like a school team or a club or how many people? Like what would you reckon ballpark?
Like maybe 2 million.
2 million?
Maybe at a push.
Like 10 million?
It is in fact 10 million.
Is it? Wow.
Almost exactly 10 million. So that is the scale of it.
I've counted them. That's how I know.
And how
Anna
many people
Googles rugby playing men quite a lot.
Yes, for research.
And then how many people do you think watched the Rugby World Cup final in 2019? So the last Rugby World Cup final there were
close to 1 billion.
Close to 1 billion.
20 million.
20 million. The answer is
just the parents of the rugby players in the world.
The answer is in fact 857 million.
I'm a bit
1
closer.
in 9 people on Earth watch the Rugby World Cup final.
That is huge.
So it's not nothing, right? Like it is like it has some following. 1 in 9 people watch the thing. There you are. That's rugby for you and a sense of its reach and scale and history. Very, very important history topic.
I loved it. I learned a lot. And now, in addition to Googling young Saddam Hussein, I will be Googling,
all the rugby players.
Important rugby players.
Right, my section, my retirement fund. And before we begin, can I please give a disclaimer that the following does not count as financial advice. Past performance is not an indicator for future returns, and please to consult your financial planner and ideally your family before making any large investments.
Oh God, I'm so nervous.
However, saying that, I have a surefire way to make millions of pounds. You literally cannot lose. And how, I hear you ask?
Yes, how?
Beanie Babies.
Oh no.
Today I'm going to talk about the craze that hit in the 90s for the Beanie Babies, known as Beanie Baby Mania, or if you're like, a naysayer, the Beanie Baby bubble. But this was just, by the way, for our younger fans who don't know, when people just lost their goddamn minds for stuffed teddy bears.
Yeah. To be fair, they were more than just teddy bears. They were friends. There was a wide array of animals.
Yes.
Can we just have a quick check right now? Which of the three of us collected Beanie Babies?
Okay. I did not.
I did not.
I did.
I don't collect, I invest.
I do still have all of mine too.
How many?
Probably like 20 or 25. Wow. Like I wasn't one of those people who had, hundreds, but I was really into it.
Yeah, a lot of people were.
Yeah.
And we'll learn more about this.
Okay, good.
So it started off with a chap called Ty Warner and his associates, Patricia Roach and Faith McGowan. Ty was a toy maker prior to starting his own company in 1986, which produced stuffed toys. And he didn't have much initial success until about 1993, when he invented the bean. Or more specifically, the plastic pellets that stuff the toys. So this gave the toys their signature denser yet subtly plush feeling that they have. Yeah. And they were slightly understuffed on purpose so they could be easier to pose, as opposed to regular teddy bears that are fully stuffed and sort of
very
static.
stiff. Yeah.
It's worth noting there's a little bit of controversy surrounding who leaned into what, who did what in this sort of triangle of people. They were kind of dating, they were not dating, they weren't married, but there was a bit of a triangle. Like whoever, whatever, who cares, right? But the interesting part is who should be credited for the inventions and the work going into it. Ty does get most of the credit, but there was definitely a lot of help and support by these two women involved as well. So take this all with sort of a caveat of 90s chauvinism.
Well, it's his name on the ear tag.
It is his name on the ear tag and the company. But anyway, Warner did play a pivotal role in the success of these Beanie Babies because he carefully managed their production, the distribution, and importantly, the marketing. So he implemented strategies by making limited production runs, retiring certain designs at the peak of their popularity, and creating this sense of exclusivity which fueled the collector frenzy surrounding these Beanie Babies. Yeah. Because suddenly this bear that was $20 today was going to be $40 tomorrow because they're cutting off supply.
Exactly.
And they would distribute Beanie Babies of certain types to different shops, and they would purposely not have this wide spread. So created this sort of fever around them, which is incredible.
It's actually like a fascinating economic theory.
Like, I'm
just scarcity.
Gripped by this immediately.
So you're on board, but despite the initial skepticism from some retailers, Beanie Babies' popularity soared in the mid-90s, and Ty Incorporated experienced remarkable growth. Warner's attention to detail, his dedication to the quality of the materials going into it, and his innovative marketing tactics played this significant role in the company's success. By the mid-90s, Beanie Babies were this cultural phenomenon.
For Mama Mom.
That's the one. And it's sought after collectible. They were just in the zeitgeist. People were investing in them and hoarding them, thinking that they would grow in value in later years. And there were Beanie Baby fairs, and there was even fights with limited runs opened in certain shops. And one of my favorite stories from this is a truck that was carrying Beanie Babies to McDonald's for a limited run overturned on the interstate in Atlanta.
Oh God.
And there was people just surging onto the interstate.
Oh my God.
Picking them up and trying to pick them up, risking life and limb. So
Will is making the most astonished face right now.
Yeah. People really bought into it. So another thing that actually helped to fuel the rise of the Beanie Babies was also the rise of eBay.
Yeah.
So this, I don't know if you heard of it, but this online auction platform, founded in 1995, provided this convenient and accessible marketplace for collectors to buy and then sell these Beanie Babies worldwide. So it could be a worldwide phenomenon. And then the people were connecting and trading with each other on forums, and this rise of the internet helped to bubble the popularity even higher. And this brings us to 1995, precisely where one of the most rare and precious Beanie Babies of all time was made. The iconic Peanut, the royal blue elephant.
Oh.
This was especially rare.
Peanut, the royal blue elephant.
Yeah.
I did not have Peanut.
No, you didn't, probably. It was especially rare because the elephant was supposed to be a light blue rather than the royal blue, but due to a mix-up in one of the factories, a very scarce number of them were manufactured in this deep royal blue. One of them would actually go on to sell for $10,000.
Oh my God.
Yes. But this pales in significance actually to some of the other Beanie Babies. For example, a mint condition original 1997 release of Princess Bear, otherwise known as Princess Diana Bear, can fetch even more than that.
I have one of those.
Do you?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. The original one?
I mean...
From 1997?
I think so.
Okay. I want you to guess, how much do you think that bear is worth?
I like 50,000.
Will?
20,000.
Okay, so there's one being listed right now for $500,000. It hasn't sold for that, by the way.
I mean, yeah, sure, I could list it for 10 million.
That's the most expensive, but the one was actually sold. One physical one was actually sold in 2022 for $20,000.
Oh my God.
So if you have an original one with the tag still on, it's a mint condition, and it's actually the princess thing.
I definitely have one. I don't know if it's. I'm going to call my dad as soon as the show is over and make him go to my room and find it.
There's also a few on eBay for like £300. So
like
I'll take that money.
So most of them are not worth.
You should
anything.
genuinely settle them.
Yeah. No? Well, they make me happy when I go home and see them.
Oh, I see. Okay, fair enough. Yeah.
Anyway, shortly after this, this craze, late 90s, early 2000s, surprise, surprise, the Beanie bubble burst.
Aww.
So there was hilarious scenes in courtrooms of divorcing couples splitting up their stash between them of the Beanie Babies, saying, dividing their wealth.
Yeah, I don't care about custody of the kids. I just want my Princess Diana bear.
Exactly. People's life savings were poured into it, including a chap called Chris Robinson, who has about 20,000 Beanie Babies in his garage, and it cost about $100,000 approximately back in the day, and he's still holding them onto them in case they go up in price. And that's of course what I'm doing, and in fact I'm doubling down because I'm going to buy the dip.
Yep.
And if anyone wants to buy Beanie Babies from me along the way, please do, so I can go back to enjoying things like hot meals and
It's worth it. It's a great investment.
It is a great investment.
I'm going to cash out and be a billionaire.
So, okay, to wrap this up, let's have a game. I'm going to do kind of a two truths and a lie kind of thing. Okay. I'm going to name a couple of Beanie Babies, and one of them in this group I have made up.
Okay.
And I need you to guess which one it is.
Okay.
Is it Bongo the Monkey, Spike the Rhino, Fizzles the Dragon, or Puddles the Duck?
Fizzles the Dragon.
Fizzles the Dragon.
What was the third one?
Bongo the Monkey, Spike the Rhino, Fizzles the Dragon, or Puddles the Duck. The answer is Fizzles the Dragon.
Yeah, I think they were all real animals. I don't think they did any mythical creatures.
I think they do kind of everything at this stage, to be honest. I think, like
us purists.
They've lost all the run of them,
Yeah.
So what happened to
I saw a dragon. Sorry, Karen.
You saw Sorry, that's way more interesting.
No, I did in Georgia.
Okay, good.
You slew it.
Yeah. Oh, yes, of course. Wow. Is that you? St. John?
Yeah, with my lance.
St. George.
St. George, that's the one.
Yeah.
Not St. John. Anyway, so what happened to the company and to our main man, Ty? Well, he's still alive and kicking, and he is, in fact, a billionaire. His company still produces Beanie Babies to this day.
Wow.
Some of the 2023 lineup includes their Easter collection with Hippity, Hoppity, and Floppy.
Ooh.
Along with Honeycomb the dog and Snapper the frog / maybe turtle, I'm not sure. But he also runs MGA Entertainment, which makes the Bratz dolls.
Oh.
Yeah, and he has a wide portfolio of investments, property, etc., as one does. So maybe do what Ty did by diversifying investments rather than going deep on toys. But there you go. That's everything you need to know about Beanie Babies and 1995. I highly commend the website beaniepedia.com. Which its tagline says it has the aim to be the most comprehensive online database of Beanie Babies and the most useful tool for managing your collection.
Yeah.
And it definitely hits the mark. It is intense. Also, there actually is a movie coming out later this year called The Beanie Bubble, featuring Zach Galifianakis as Ty, and also featuring Sarah Snook from Succession.
Yeah. Oh, she's great. Is she playing a Beanie Baby?
She is playing, I think, one of Patricia.
One of the love triangle.
One of the love triangle type people.
Fascinating.
Yes, I think. Anyway, there you go. Beanie Babies.
I have so many emotions right now, and I remember because all Beanie Babies had a birthday. So in their ear tag, they would have their name, a birthday, and a little poem.
Yeah.
And I was always looking for one with my birthday, and I remember being so happy when I found him. His name was Houston the dog. I still have him. He's actually in London with me.
Wow.
And I was like, sorry, that made me sound really weird. I don't know why I have him in London. I don't he sleeps on my bed. Anyway, I was so happy to find this Beanie Baby, and I just Googled when he was released, thinking that, I found him in the late 90s. No, he was released in 2005. So I still bought Beanie Babies in 2005.
My goodness.
Uh-huh.
Wow.
So
And he's worth pennies now.
He's worth pennies.
Yeah.
Whole pennies.
He's worth a lot to you. He's worth a lot to you.
He is worth a lot to me, and he has my birthday. And so now everybody knows my birthday if you're willing to go on Beaniepedia and look it up.
Amazing. I completely passed me by as a craze.
I was a Pog man.
Yeah. Oh,
Was it the same
I was
time?
both. You could be both.
I think Pogs were pretty much the same. I mean, Pogs
Yeah.
also stretched back earlier, I think 80s, 90s, and, you know.
But I like the idea of sort of arbitrarily limiting production on a thing to
Yeah.
drive, like making it essentially random.
It's like
Well,
if you ran a toy factory, that's what you would do.
Yes, it is absolutely.
Yeah.
I think I'm genuinely going to launch a business off the back
wait
of
till
this
you hear about the
conversation.
diamond trade. You know what I mean?
Amazing. All right. Thank you for joining us. That's everything you could possibly ever need to know. And I hope you learned a lot.
It was a great year. We've learned so much. We've grown as people.
We've grown as people, emotionally and physically.
Oh, we should stop eating.
So I guess all that's left to do is to get our next year.
I think it's my turn to continue my
The apprenticeship.
I feel I'm getting quite good at this.
Okay.
Okay.
Let's not get too cocky.
Yeah, what could possibly go wrong? Anyway, let me just take it out of the bell jar and pour the mirror over it.
Yep.
And the next year is... Oh, the ticker tape's quite a long one.
Ooh, the ticker tape. We haven't had the ticker tape in so long.
Okay, let me just read this. It says, Dear Randomly Generated History Club, the next episode shall be an extra special episode where you should be hosting illustrious board member Paul Bavel of History Rage.
Ooh.
Ah, okay. And the year in question shall be 1942.
Amazing.
1942, our first World War II episode and our first ever guest.
Yes, the illustrious Paul Bavel. For those that don't know, he runs History Rage, which is obviously a secret clandestine member of the Randomly Generated History Club. He
Yes.
doesn't like to publish his membership, of course.
That's my favourite podcast.
It actually is a very good podcast wherein he gets actual historians in.
It is.
And
pretty
he
good.
interviews them about specific topics that enrages them, that people might get wrong or that people that misconstrue, and then it actually elicits really
Nice.
good responses and stuff.
Oh, God. So he knows things.
I'm slightly nervous that he is
Very
he is an
nervous.
actual historian.
Oh, no. Well, we're going to have to be on our best behavior.
Yeah, but 1942, great year to do.
Great
and,
year.
Yeah,
Plenty
looking
of
forward to it.
history. Probably some Beanie Baby stuff.
The initial Beanie Babies were
Yeah.
happening there.
Cool. Well, I'm really looking forward to that. So we will see you next time with our guest, Paul Bavel.
Perfect. See you then.
next time.
Toodles.
Bye.